but the fact that many entrepreneurs are deciding to not raise money, I think is incredibly empowering. Now, of course, that's difficult if you need to spend your full day working on this thing, you can't do it on the side or whatnot, and that impacts your day-to-day income.
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
How? Because I asked her this question. I said, how much is costing you to acquire a client for your thing? And she said, Harry, I don't have the number. I said, well, this is the things that how many users? No, I have these users. Okay, so how much I cost them? No, I don't have. I cannot answer you this question. I said, well, this is the kind of question that now it comes to your mind because your thing actually works. And Raj, it comes to distribution, and it comes like if somebody is in love with the application, but they don't understand or they don't have experience or they don't understand how that distribution, how to get to market works, you give them even $1 million and they will be able to do very little with it because sometimes, especially direct to consumer, and you need big numbers. I always tell them maybe start better B2B, right? Which is maybe would be an easiest path, right? Unless they have experience in distribution, unless they have experience in go to market, unless that you know how to pivot. So what is your advice or what is your message for those tech entrepreneurs listening to a podcast now that they're facing with the problem that we have today, which is go to market and distributions. Like a lot of millionaires that come here, tech millionaires, when I ask them the background, they say, no, we are expert in marketing and sales. I say, how come you're a tech millionaire? Well, I understand what the market wants. I understand what they're gonna pay for it, and I understand what product they want. So then I had a small tech team to develop exactly what they want and go there and sell it, and that's how they become multimillionaire. And interesting, the actually the software developers that came here and they are also millionaires, they spend the whole podcast talking about distribution. Harry, this is how I find my first client. This is how I get in love with it. This is how I get to market. This is how I pivot. This is the strategy that I use. And they're so passionate more about how they went to market than actually the tech, which is for me shocking because you said, look, you software developer. I was expecting that you're gonna spend the whole hour talking about coding and about all things. And it becomes even harder because the fact that you become a developer in the first instance is because you want to be alone in front of the computer and you don't want anybody to bother you and you don't definitely don't want to talk to strangers and to get to distribution of product market fit, it needs another personality. It needs someone that's out there every day talking about the thing with everybody and getting feedback and getting no's and getting yes and everything. So, what is your message for those tech founders uh, that they are stuck and they're looking for distribution channels to get to product market fit or to get to the first million?
I don't think all tech people choose to be an engineer to sit in front of a computer. I think engineering is a very creative exercise, which happens to also often happen in front of a computer. But
I'm an
I guess,
engineer also. I'm a chemical engineer.
yeah. But I guess what I was going to say is, I mean, I think I think 2025, 2026 is very different to pre-2025, 2026. Like Gen AI era, the B2B growth playbook, you find a problem and you figure out how to reach and sell to that audience. Now, I think that's still true today, but it's more crowded and enterprise has optionality. For the first time, they can go, hey, do I want to build this myself or do I want to buy something? And the fact that they can even think about building it themselves is an incredible unlock, but it's only enabled because of Gen AI. So I think talking to folks and what their sales motion has looked like in 25, 26 would be quite different to talking to folks that had, let's say made their first million prior to that. I think a lot about consumer because that's been where most of my domain experience has been. And in consumer, historically, There was a number of motions around SEO, now answer engine optimization, social media proof, trust, paid acquisition, things like that. And all those channels are getting flooded at the top. And I think a lot of consumer founders are almost over-indexing on that, along with, B2B, SaaS founders, developer tools, et cetera, et cetera. I think an area that's gotten forgotten because we've become over-reliant on AI is actually coming back to just sort of consumer psychology and PLG. Like, why would somebody want to tell this app to their friend? Like, why would they want to share it? Does this app have good word of mouth optimization? Does this app experience improve if I invite somebody? Like, is there a built-in loop, right? And so I think those kinds of things, I think people have de-indexed on because they become so focused on AI and execution. It's like, oh, I can run my blog through AI, so I'm going to spend more energy there, and I can run ads through AI, whatever, and that's all great. And I think that's the new table stakes. But I think there's so much noise at the top of the funnel now. Ultimately, it's going to come back to trusted referral. And so I think that's where time needs to be spent, especially if you're thinking about more consumer and frankly, a lot of B2B SaaS acquisition now, particularly new companies, right? I'm not talking about mature established brands.
So, what is your opinion on software as a service solutions? They were doing really well, like you said, prior to 2025, 26, and now there are some indication, exactly like you said, that people are saying, well, do I really need this software as a service? Do I really need this SaaS, or should I build it myself? So what future do you think for the software as a service? Some people, I need to check this. Some people were saying that the whole industry, they are uh, decreasing the value, but I don't know about this, about the company software as a service have since the AI appearance. So what is the future for the software as a service versus building myself?
I think obviously a lot of work has shifted from interacting with whatever enterprise web application is in place and doing work through a terminal window or through some bespoke application that you built. And this has all been enabled because of AI. And it's an incredible unlock because people can build personalized workflows and experiences exactly how they want to do it. They want to interact with their CRM. They don't want to use Salesforce for whatever reason. They can still use Salesforce behind the scenes, but they interact with it through their own bespoke web application or through a terminal window or whatever it might be. And that's just been an incredible unlock. But the fact that you can build the UI layer and the SaaS tools themselves have really just become systems of records really changes how you should think about pricing, where energy should be spent, how the teams are organized and whatnot. I can imagine Salesforce spending time thinking about, hey, should we redirect
Privacy,
resources
privacy and security also, right?
across the board? I mean, whether it's Sentry for like security tools or whatnot, I mean, things are moving into a terminal sort of window. It doesn't mean that the infra layer and all of that work doesn't need to be done, but my point is, how much front-end engineering work should Salesforce invest in versus pushing things into a command line interface or into an MCP to make it more agent friendly, and then let the customers decide how they want to use these systems and what they want to build. And so I feel uh, this is certainly creating pressure on SaaS, as particularly on like higher end SaaS, where they have been largely
That's
systems of
what I
record.
heard. That's what I heard, right? Yeah.
But what I'll say is on lower end SaaS, the fact is we do have a buy versus build decision. If you're a small company, you may decide you don't want to even use Salesforce. You want to roll your own because you just need 1% of the feature set, right? The fact that you even have that optionality now, it is double-edged. A lot of these organizations aren't thinking about the maintenance cost that's associated with that and keeping it up to date and as new features come in and things like that, right? So I think it's right now all of this stuff is in motion. But for sure, SaaS companies are thinking about that. And the fact that an enterprise can go to a SaaS and as a buyer can sort of say, you know what, I have a buy versus build optionality that's actually real versus before I didn't really have a build option. You can imagine that's creating some price compression. And at the same time, these organizations are seeing absurd amounts of usage because of agents interacting with Salesforce doing thousands of things, more so than a human would do. right? So they're also thinking about, well, how do I reconcile that? And so they're looking at usage-based pricing models, which could also change things. So I think this is all developing. It's in flow, but it's certainly the way it was pre-2024 is no longer the case.
So changing the industry so fast, what could you share with those tech entrepreneurs looking for funding? Because we have that dynamic, this dynamic that we used to see a lot in tech, building that MVP, the number one. Everybody forget about the M's. They don't create an MVP. They create a big elephant. Uh, and after, when all the money, time, and resources are exhausted, then they come to you to say, look, invest because we need the money to sell it. And you are like, how am I gonna invest on this? You guys don't even know it's anybody want to buy this in the first place. No, but this is the problem. The problem is here. The problem is, yeah, but I nobody I have used it yet. So what are the um things that tech founders should be have checked before they go and seek investment today for a VC?
It's funny because investment for the first time in so many years, I wouldn't call it a negative signal, but the fact that many entrepreneurs are deciding to not raise money, I think is incredibly empowering. Now, of course, that's difficult if you need to spend your full day working on this thing, you can't do it on the side or whatnot, and that impacts your day-to-day income. But AI has become empowering in that way. And I think as a result of that, there is a little bit of this sort of self-selection that's going on where you go to a seed investor and they're like, well, why are you pitching me for money? Because it's sort of like, were they not able to figure it out on their own? But at the same time, they have money they have to deploy, and not every seed investor is going to be able to get anthropic secondaries or whatever, which is everyone's trying to pile into. So I think at early stage venture, it's been an incredibly challenging market. And I think they also know that things are changing suddenly and very fast. And so it's very hard, when you're in the business of trying to predict what the future is going to look like, but the future is like rapidly changing underneath you at levels that we've never seen before. Very, very difficult. And even later stage companies, they're dealing with some of this, right? Not everyone can just say, hey, I'm just going to pile everything into like 3 AI companies that are.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.